Hi everybody and welcome back. Alright, so I am still at my daughter's place and yeah, I'm just starting up for the day and I thought that I would start this vlog. Now, it's going to probably get a little bit noisy. Hopefully the guy will just drop the stuff off because it is raining today, finally, some cool weather. I'm so excited for it. But today I thought I'd start a new vlog. Sorry about the echo in this. They're still moving in. I'm not unpacking any of their stuff because I don't want to put it in the wrong spot. But I'm going to talk about NetGalley arcs. So basically over the last couple of weeks I've decided to really get proactive with my NetGalley and I have quite a number of books on there. I think, let me just go and check the computer because it's hard to check it on the app itself. It doesn't give me all those details. So let me just come in here, and this is my little bedroom I'm at the moment, and let me just bring up a NetGalley. So I'm just going to pop you down here for a moment. So the plan is to basically get my NetGalley under control and, you know, start looking at this as a little bit more of, this is my job. They're giving me a free book to review for an honest review. The least I can do is read it. So rather than collect books, I decided to get a little bit proactive this year and make sure that I read all the books that were on my NetGalley. So let me just bring it up. Of course, you know, it's right in the middle of prize season as well. We've just had the Stella Prize announced and the Women's Prize for Fiction is getting announced tomorrow. So I am looking at books right now and all that sort of stuff, but I'm thinking to myself, you know, like I did the prediction list and I'm like, you know what? I didn't really have any idea what sort of books would be on the list, the Women's Prize for Fiction. And I've never really looked that closely at the Stella one. Like I know that it exists and all that sort of stuff, and occasionally I'll go over and check what the long list was or the short list is, or who the winner was and whatnot. And I might or might not look at that. And that makes me a bad Australian. By not supporting Australian authors. So this year I decided, after being asked several times on sprints if I was going to do it, and I've always said no, but I've been thinking about it, and as I said, the list has just got announced. So I figured, you know, I really need to make a concerted effort to read new releases and stuff like that. So that got me thinking about NetGalley. So I thought, you know what? I need to get proactive about it. I need to look for books and all that sort of stuff that are coming out that I want to read and all that sort of stuff, and look at the different types of authors and books and genres and everything that they are in. Now, I read across a lot of genres anyway, so that's neither here nor there. But I thought, you know what, I have, now let me just bring up my NetGalley, that oh, I've just been approved for another one. All right. Oh, cool. My Crochet Home. That's a craft one. That's okay. They don't take that long to, I actually got rejected for that before, and now I've been approved for it. So, because I reapplied for it. But anyway, my NetGalley score right now is sitting, it'll be below 50. Yeah, it's at 45%. It was at 60, but I just got approved for a whole heap. I have been approved for a total of 53. I've sent 24 feedback in. So I basically have, I think, 20, let me just see, let me just go back here. Go back, come on, give me my numbers please. I have 26 books that I need to, I have 8 ebooks and I have 17 audiobooks. Now, a lot of these audiobooks are read it now ones that I've put on there because I'm trying to get my score up. Now, for those that don't know what NetGalley is, and I thought everybody knew what NetGalley was, but I have come across a couple of people that don't know what it is. So just in case you don't know what a NetGalley is, it is a place where you can get ARCs, so advanced reader copies. You apply for them, like you request them, okay? Some you get approved for, some that you don't. I have I've had quite a number. I think I've had about 25, 26 rejected, but that was early on. I'm starting to get more approved now because I'm actually doing more reviews. So I haven't really talked about them on my channel at all. I've just pretty much gone, oh, I'm reading this book, it's an arc, and that's it. And then I've just done a written review. I'm not a great writer, but someone gave me, and I can't remember who it was, but someone gave me some great advice. Maybe if I just talk about the book into a voice app or something like that, and then transcribe that into words, and and then tweak it from there. And I use Grammarly to get the right spelling and grammar and all that sort of stuff, so I don't have to think about that. I can just start typing, and then that'll put all the mistakes in for me, and then I can just go back and correct it. So it just cleans it up for me and all that sort of stuff. So basically what I started doing is, to get my score up, was I started reviewing some self-help books, because there was a lot there, and craft books and stuff like that, and recipe books and all that sort of stuff. So that helped me get my score up. And sprinkled in that, I was listening to Read It Now books. So I've read a couple of horror books, I've read some historical fiction and all that sort of stuff. So I've been last year, slowly but surely building up my percentage. This year I've got a little bit more proactive and decided that, you know what, I really need to start reading these books. Now, as I said, I have applied for over 50, I think 55 all up. I've 54 I think I said before, but anyway, I still have a whole ton that I'm looking for to get approved for. So I have I've got 10. Basically, I thought, you know what, instead of just I'm reading these books, I may as well share them with you, and what I'm reading. Now, some of these are Read It Now, and some of them are approvals and stuff like that. So I'll let you know if I remember if they are Read It Now. And the ones that I'm going to talk about in this vlog are the ones that I have read this month. So normally what I do at the end of each month, and I've been doing this for a couple of months now, is I try to read a couple of NetGalley books. But what I've been doing, because I've been doing some buddy reads and I've been doing readathons and all that sort of stuff, I didn't get a chance to do that in February. And because I was waiting for the Women's Prize for Fiction long list and also the Stellar list to be announced, which the Stellar list comes out on the 4th, and the long list for the Women's Prize comes out on the 5th. So I was waiting for those, and I thought, well, you know what, I'm finished. I read all the books that I was going to read and finish for the readathon, which gave me the 29th, the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th. Now, I'm not going into the Stellar long list and reading all of those. I'm just starting out with 2, and I'll read them over the year. I think one long list in a short space of time is enough for me, and I'm going to continue doing that with the Women's Prize for Fiction. So what I thought I would do is read some of my arcs. Now, I haven't checked in, I haven't gone, oh, this is the book that I'm reading and all the rest of it. So you're pretty much just going to get the wrap up on what I thought about them. Of course, I am still going to type up my review, and my worded review might be slightly different than what I've said here, in a relaxed atmosphere and all the rest of it. So my plan going forward is at the end of every month, I'm going to be reading, for the last week of each month, I'm going to be reading my arcs. And of course, with the Women's Prize for Fiction, I'm not rushing those this year. I've got 7 weeks to read the 16. I'm going to read a couple a week. There might be some shorter ones in there, so I'll be able to read 3 in 1 week, or whatever the case may be. But I generally read anywhere from 3 to 5 books a week. So I figured if I'm only reading 2 with the Women's Prize, which I can take my time, and then over the weekends I can read 1 or 2 arcs. So what I thought I would do is, I don't know whether these are going to be weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. It'll be just how I do them, but I thought that this would be a great way to keep me on track. If I'm vlogging about it, I have to put the video out about it. I will have to read them, because eventually I want to get predominantly all my new release books as arcs if I possibly can. I know that I'm not going to get all of them, but if I can save myself a little bit of money and all that sort of stuff, I can. Now, NetGalley, I should probably say that NetGalley is free to join. And then yesterday, while I was on sprints, my lovely friend Chris, that has found me through the Women's Prize for Fiction vlogs that I did last year, said that, oh, did you look on the UK one? I did not even realise that I could go on the UK one under my banner and request some books from there. I went over there last night and had a look, and that's where most of my requests have come from. is from the UK, because that makes a lot of sense, because I couldn't work out like how Chris was knowing what was coming out and all that sort of stuff, and is really up to date with new releases and stuff like that. And Chris also does a lot of NetGalley arcs and whatnot, and I always love to hear what they're reading and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so basically I am super excited about that I can now go on to the UK one. And so I went last night and I had a look at a couple of audiobooks. Now, predominantly I have audiobooks on NetGalley at the moment, and that's only because I'm trying to get my score up. Of course, I'm starting now to get some ebooks and all that sort of stuff, and now that I am getting into the prize mode and all that sort of stuff, my busy time of year around June, July is when I start to slow things down a little bit, because I've got other commitments and all that sort of stuff. And that seems to be also when I read a lot of physical books with my eyeballs, not so much with my ears. But I love the fact that I can get audiobooks here that are new releases and stuff like that as well, which is absolutely amazing. So basically what I thought I would do is check in with you, let you know what's going on. I know that this is a little bit of a chatty video, but it's just setting it up for the series, and hopefully you'll subscribe and come along for the journey with me for the books that I read. So this weekend alone I have read 4 books. I've got about an hour left of the last one, so obviously I'll put that in, and I can hopefully get these up in the first week, thereabouts, you know, as long as I've got them, and we'll see how many I can get done. If I can get a little bit more done, right now I've got 5 that I need to work on. 2 I've already crossed off the list, and I've got another 3 on that list that I need to get done, and they are my oldest arcs on my NetGalley. They're from the end of 2022 or the beginning of 2023, I think they might be. So I've got to get into them and get them off the books, and then I'm going to look at my 2023 ones, which I think that there is 6 of those, and then I will look at my 2024 ones. Now, I'm only going to talk about the novels. I'm not going to talk about the craft books or anything like that, but I have been getting a few witchcraft books as well, which has been great. So I will talk about them as I go, and if I think it's a really good book, check out my community tab, because I'll put it when it's released. I'll put a link there as well, where you can go and suss that book out and all that sort of stuff. If it's already released, it'll be already linked up down below, and you can go and check that out. But I generally, if it's coming out or anything like that, I try to put a review also on my community tab here on YouTube, and I also try to do my Goodreads, and then I just do a little snippet over on Instagram, so you can find them in all different places and whatnot. All right, so let's get into the rest of the vlog now that you know what the premise of this, and I'm sorry about the chatty bit and whatnot, but now you know what the premise of this vlog is. Let's get into the books that I have read. The first one that I have read is called Switched by Sarah Reedy. This is book 2 in the Ghosted series. At the end of last year, I read Ghosted and absolutely loved it. And I'm really digging Sarah Reedy's writing and her writing style and her humor and her banter with her characters and all that sort of stuff. I can see myself reading a lot more of her work, and I'm looking forward to when the 3rd one comes out. As I said, this one is called Switched. I'm going to go grab my book, and we're going to go for a little bit of a walk and see what this book is all about. Now, there's probably going to be a little bit of noise, and I'll try to limit that and all the rest of it. All right, so as I said, I read Switched on the weekend. I could not put this book down. Ghosted was very much the same as well. And this is actually a Read It Now. I think it archives in the next week or so, but it is actually a Read It Now. So, and Ghosted was as well. So just from the Read It Now ones, I've picked up a couple of books. So we are following Serena, who is right into physics. She loves all things science. She is not someone who thinks that she will ever get married or have children or find the love of her life. She doesn't believe in any of that, because she believes that if she does this, she will lose herself. She will not be an individual, so to speak. And then one night, he is in a, this was so funny, like this was so unique of a way how people can meet, and all the, I thought it was just absolutely fabulous. So she is in a pub having a drink, and she's sitting on the bar stool, and she goes to get up, and she's glued to the seat. And then this is how she meets Henry. They have a hot and heavy one night stand, and then the next couple of days was quite like she just sort of left and whatnot, and they were going about their business. And then she worked out that there was something very awkward about to happen. It turns out that he is her boss. It is set in Switzerland, in Geneva. It's all around science and all that sort of stuff, because they're both science people. And basically, it turns out that Henry is her boss, so that was awkward, and she decided that she was not going to have anything to do with him and all this sort of stuff. So fast forward 18 months of a very awkward relationship, of not really liking each other and all the rest of it. Fast forward, as I said, I think it's about 18 months is the timeline, and they are at work one night and there is a blackout, and then there's like a sort of Freaky Friday situation, and they switch bodies. So yeah, they wake up the next morning and Henry is in her body, she is in his body, and of course this happens a couple of days out. I think it was 1 or 2 days out from his brother's wedding. So now they have to jet set off over to England for the wedding, and somehow they have to keep it together so no one works out that they've switched bodies and all the rest of it. And also this goes back the other way as well. Her mum becomes ill, and yeah, they have to go back the other way. So basically they have switched bodies and they don't know why, and they can't work out how to put it back, write it, and all that sort of stuff. So it is definitely like I don't know, I would say like a Big Bang meets Freaky Friday, because you've got all of the science stuff in there with the Hadron Collider and all that sort of stuff. So basically, yeah, the story goes on from there. There's a lot of witty banter between the two. The only thing that I will say on the audiobook, we only really had it from her POV, and then Henry had his POV, but for only one chapter. So that was quite odd. The narrator done a fabulous job though, even with the accents and all the rest of it. They weren't spot on, but it was still a fun time. It's just a rom-com, you know, it was just a fun time. You take it for what it is, and I highly recommend it. I've actually given it 4 stars. I gave Ghosted 4 stars as well. And I just really like Sarah Reedy's characters and how they banter and how they play off one another, and you can see some of these things just being thrown around, and just you have a little bit of a giggle and all the rest of it. I found that this whole switch thing was a great thing to read about, like how they dealt with it and all that sort of stuff, and ultimately how the book wrapped up and everything. I was pretty happy with that. I was a little bit shocked at one thing that happened, but it was great. I found it to be a fun time. The narrators that are in it both did a fabulous job. As I said, the male narrator only had 1 chapter, which was quite odd. I found that to be quite odd. I think the book would have been even elevated to a higher level of enjoyment had we had both point of views, his voice and her voice coming through. But I can also see why it was done this way, because it may have got a little bit confusing and all that for the reader as well, or the listener. But overall, I thought it was a fabulous book. As I said, it was set in Switzerland. It's got 340 pages. It goes for 10 hours and 11 minutes. And it was published on the 20th of February. So it's already out. So as I said, I'm trying to catch up with everything. And as I also said, this author is actually becoming one of my favorites. The next one that I'm going to talk about is The Phoenix Crown. Now, this was published on the 29th of February, and I was so close to getting this done. But again, I got sidetracked with a readathon and all that sort of stuff, so that made it very frustrating and whatnot. But I started this in the middle of February. No, I started it in the middle of January, at the end of January, and I read a couple of chapters and I put it down because I just wasn't in the mood. I was doing a readathon and all that sort of stuff, and that just sort of took me out of the mood a little bit for reading this book. Now, this is a historical fiction. It is centered around the San Francisco 1906 earthquake, the massive earthquake that just basically flattened San Francisco. If you haven't looked up any of those pictures or anything like that, go and have a look. And subsequently about the fires that burnt for 3 or 4 days after, basically just cleaned up everything. So this is following several women We have Gemma, who is in the beginning of the book arriving in San Francisco to meet up with her friend Nellie. And we've also got Su Ling. Su Ling is a American-born Chinese girl that is struggling with the ways of her culture and all that sort of stuff. So we've got the perspective from two different nationalities. And so it's talking, in this book, they talk a little bit about the Chinatown of San Francisco and also, you know, Nob Hill and all that sort of stuff. So these are all actual places that apparently are in San Francisco. I have no idea. I can only take it for what the authors have said and what I've seen on you know, the internet and stuff like that. I've never been to San Francisco. But anyway, this one actually came out on the 29th of February. It is published by HarperCollins Australia here. And they actually approved me for this book. This wasn't a Read It Now one. So I was pretty happy. This was actually my first one that I was approved for. Of course, yeah, I didn't make the deadline, but I'm still reviewing it and whatnot. I got it in ebook. So this one I read with my eyeballs. It sounds so gross when I say that. I read it with my eyeballs. But anyway, I read it as an ebook, and it was definitely an arc. It had all the marks and everything on it. I could only read this one. I couldn't save it to my Kindle, which was quite frustrating. I could only read it on the NetGalley app, which is fine. And I just ended up getting my tablet and reading on that because it was a little bit better than actually on my phone. I thoroughly enjoyed this story though, just the way it played out. So as I said, Gemma has just got to San Francisco. She's supposed to meet up with her friend Nellie, and Nell's not there. She went to her boarding house and she's not there. And so, but on the way to the boarding house, she meets a young Chinese boy that helps her with her trunk, and it turns out that that is Su Ling. And Su Ling has been posing as a boy to get extra money so she can try and escape from San Francisco, because she's been forced into an arranged marriage by her third uncle, who has a gambling addiction. So a lot of stuff in this book does cover the opium dens and gambling and prostitution in Chinatown, and the book painted Chinatown as quite a bleak and uninviting place. Now, there were several laws that were brought into that America put forward, where non-mixed, you couldn't mix, couldn't have mixed marriages, and also they also put an immigration stop as well. So a lot of the families of the Chinese immigrants couldn't come to America. They essentially were stuck in China, and so the men that came here to work were sending money home and all that sort of stuff, and so they sought, you know, entertainment by gambling, opium, and prostitution. So the author does discuss this a little bit in the back of the book, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But as I said, we've got Su Ling, and we first meet Su Ling as a laundry boy, for a lack of a better term, and she is remembering Reggie, this character Reggie, and for a long time we think Reggie is a young man and all that sort of stuff, until we start to realize that Reggie is actually a girl. And Nell is nowhere to be found. We cannot find where Nell is. Gemma cannot find where she is. She thinks it's very strange that she has just up and left, and not left any forwarding address or anything like that, because it's just not in her character to do so. So when Gemma is going to meet, when she goes to the boarding house, she meets a botanist named Alice. And Alice actually kicks off the book in the prologue, sending a telegram to these women, explaining to them that the Phoenix Crown has been found. Now, the Phoenix Crown is owned by the villain of the story, and that is Henry Thornton. And Henry meets and befriends these two women in different ways, in different aspects, and all that sort of stuff. You know, we've got one woman who's looking for her friend and is wanting to be an opera star, but, you know, suffers with an illness that stops her from doing that. And we've got Su Ling, who's trying to escape her, essentially what's going to be her she sees as her doom. And these two women end up colliding and meeting each other, and as well as Alice. Now, Alice isn't the main player in it, but she ends up being quite a prominent character in the book. And we've also got Nell and Reggie. So It is a very interesting way this book was done. It is actually done by two authors. We've got Kate Quinn and Janie, I think it's Janie Chang. And as I said, it's historical fiction. And I'm not sure how many pages it is. It'll be, because the pages aren't marked on the ebook that I had. And and so basically, we just follow their story and how their lives intertwined and how eventually they seek revenge, but not revenge in the normal aspect of actually bringing justice to the people that need justice brought against them. And so it goes on from that, and how the trauma of the earthquake, affected them and all that sort of stuff as well. There's not a lot of the trauma in there, but it still covers that. Now, I will talk about the author's notes. The author notes were really comprehensive, and we got it from both perspectives of the authors and what they brought to the book and all that sort of stuff. That was very, very interesting. And subsequently, I've actually gone and bought the audiobook, which I purchased on the weekend as well, after I finished reading this, because I would really like to listen to this a little bit further as well. And I checked the audiobook, and the author's notes is on the audiobook as well. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I love it when you get author's notes that explain how they wrote their characters and why they wrote their characters and what they changed and what they didn't change, and all that sort of stuff. Now, Alice in this was actually a botanist that was in San Francisco, whereas the other characters were actually fictitious characters. So take that for what you will. And so, and Alice was quite a strong character, rightly so. Like at that time, she was the head curator of the botany, what was it called? I think it's called I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, she was head botanist and she was the curator of it. So her job was to find plants and all that sort of stuff, and take notes of them and all that. So overall, I gave this one 4 stars. So I had a fabulous, so far, I've had a fabulous reading weekend and all that sort of stuff. So this one was a little bit tricky. I did find it a little bit slow at times, but when the pace picked up in the book, when we had something happening and all the rest of it, it was really well paced. Now, a lot of time too, I've read before when two authors have come together and you can distinctly see when the two authors are writing because of their writing styles. These two have just really melded their writing styles together and done an absolute fabulous job of doing it. I could not tell one author from the other. They just blended this story so well. And as I said, I have read books before where it hasn't blended so well. It's still been a great book and all the rest of it, but you can see just subtle changes and stuff. I could not with this one. So I thoroughly enjoyed it and I highly recommend it. I've given it 4 stars, and I would recommend this to any of my friends that read historical fiction. All right, the next one. Then we took a little bit of a swing and we went for Misfits Magic. Now, this one has been on my, I hate to say this has been on my NetGalley since the end of 2022. So it's been on there for a while and it needed to be sorted out. So this one's called Misfits Magic. It's The Last Halloween. It's by Fred Grady, I think is the author. Gracity, I think it might be. I don't know. I can't read my own writing. It is YA middle grade. It is high end, like the top end of middle grade. And it's actually horror. Which I had a fun time reading. It's got a lot of magic realism in it. It's got horror elements and whatnot. So basically this is following the story, and I really don't know how to review middle grade, but I just thought I'd give it a go so I can find more books for Mia to listen to, because she loves Amari and all that sort of stuff, and now she wants to listen to Harry Potter, and she's like, have you got any other books? And she's super excited. So I'm going to get her a set of headphones, and I'm thinking I'm going to get her a small tablet and just put Audible on it, and maybe for Easter instead of chocolate, and then just say to her mum, this is for her to listen to at the end of the day, and just set up the Audible with those books on it for her. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking of doing. I mean, if she's going to listen to audiobooks, I don't care. If she never reads a story, she's just going to listen to great stories, I don't care. So yeah. But anyway, this is following Jeff. Now, Jeff lives in a small town. He's a foster kid. He's living with a not a very great family. They're quite mean to him, and it's almost reminiscent of like a Cinderella story, because he is cooking and doing all this stuff and they're just really nasty to him and all that sort of stuff. He goes to school and he's getting bullied and all the things are happening to poor, it's actually Goff. I keep saying Jeff because it's spelt G-O-F-F, and it just, for some reason, my brain keeps saying Jeff. But anyway, it's Goff. And, but unbeknownst to Goff, he is actually a descendant of someone who is who was a wizard, and which makes him also a wizard. And this particular person also saved the town from a very powerful wizard. And so yeah, so basically, that is the story in a nutshell, and we just go on the adventures. Now, he's a misfit, as I said. He's bullied, he's victimized at home and all that sort of stuff, but he hates his small town. But now he is a reluctant hero. He's a misfit and he's a reluctant hero, and he has to save his small town, and he doesn't like the town. So it makes for some interesting moments. Now, this one was an audiobook as well. The narrator was great. I did not write down the narrator, but I will be able to bring it up because it is on my little tablet here. Okay, so the narrator of this is Colin Watts, and the audiobook goes for 9 hours and 11 minutes. Now, it's on Audible as well. That's where I just brought it up on. It's on Audible as well because I've already like reviewed it and it's disappeared. So and that's too hard to find on my app. So yeah, so it is on Audible, and unfortunately it actually has no ratings on Audible. So I might have to fix that. So anyway, as I said, Goff is a reluctant hero. He's got to save his small town, and he's just really reluctant. There's a whole series of events that happens in this. It's got lots of magic. It's got some dark elements in it as well. So it is definitely for that higher end. I probably wouldn't give it to Mia until she was about 10, maybe 11. And that just because of the themes in it. But it depends, because she does love Amari and she's listening to that, and she asks the appropriate questions and stuff like that. But I would definitely recommend this to any kid that loves Amari or Harry Potter or anything like that, and anybody that loves any sort of magic, realism and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, the reluctant hero as well. Like, we've got Goff that is this reluctant hero. But I'm going to leave it at that, because if I talk about any more of it, it is actually going to give it away. But yeah, I highly recommend this. I actually gave it a 3.75. Now, remember, I am rating this on the audio, not on the physical copy of the book. So I don't know whether that's going to detract away from the writing style or anything like that. But the way it all flowed and everything, to me, it flowed really well. The narrator done a fabulous job. You could feel the angst as well that Goff was feeling, and all that sort of stuff as well. I'll tell you what, I give this guy, it's his absolute bucketing down outside, and he's out there digging holes and filling them up. Go him. That is awesome. I mean, he's really got no job. Like, he's got no choice if that's his job, but still, I wouldn't like to work in the rain. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, so basically, I just found it to be absolutely fascinating how the book went, and the narrator drawing me into the story. And I did say to me, I said, oh, I've got another book for you. So she's super excited that I'm finding them. Will I review a lot of middle grade? It will have to, like, she really likes fantasy and magic and all that sort of stuff. She loves that, and she also loves the underdog as well. So I'm thinking if I can find anything more like that. This is the first one in a series of 2, I believe. And as I said, this has been on my NetGalley TBR since 2022, early 2023. So I'm glad to have read that now and reviewed it and get it off. All right, that is that one. The next one that I'm going to talk about, which I'm actually past the way through, and I'm taking another swing right out of the park. Now, this just gives you an idea of the books that I read, like across different genres. Now, this one is a historical fiction, but it's a religious historical fiction. Now, before everybody goes, oh my God, a religion's one? No. It's not like that. This is based on some true facts from the Mennonite, I think it's called, movement, and the Great Disappointment. Now, I don't know anything about them, but I have heard of the Great Disappointment. So I'm assuming, and it is actually mentioned, I'm about an hour finished from this. This again is an audio book, and this one is called Clouds Without Water. Now let me just bring it up, because I don't think I'm going to do all the justice that I need to do to this book. So let me just bring up the information. Okay, so this book is written by Gary Harper. It's called Clouds Without Water. So this was based on actual historical events of the Millerite movement and the Great Disappointment. Clouds Without Water offers a harrowing account of society beset by mass hysteria and the lone voices that cry out to stop it. So basically we have William, who is an academic pastor. He left his small town of Cavalry and went off to study religion and all that sort of stuff. And while he was away studying, he was gone for like 20 years, I believe. And while he was studying, he had come to the conclusion from his mathematical equations and working out and scriptures and all that sort of stuff that the end was nigh. And so he went back to his small parish and basically ousted the pastor that was there, Thomas, out, and basically then got into the church and started preaching of the end was nigh. So we start out the book with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, basically. But like with the end is coming. The 7 seals and all this sort of stuff is talked about in the book and whatnot. And so he progresses through the scriptures and all that sort of stuff, and basically putting the fear of God into the constituents of Cavalry. And the more that it goes on, the more followers he gets. And then Joshua, I think his name was, or anyway, there was a character which is escaping my mind. He actually had a little like printing press and all that sort of stuff, and so he was helping William to get the word out to the masses. So basically it started to spread across the country, and Thomas was this lone person going, this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, the end is not coming, and all this sort of stuff. And what compounded it even further is that one of the characters in the book was struck by lightning, and she had just gone, this is all hogwash and all the rest of it. So that put the fear of God into them even more, and basically, yeah. All hell broke loose, basically. This one lone voice that was screaming from the rafters was saying that this was coming, and it was happening on the 22nd of October, 1844, and that the world is ending, and, the second coming of Christ, and all this stuff is going on. Like, this book is written so well. Now, I know that I've often said that I'm not religious or anything like that, but I do like reading about books that are based on true events of mass hysteria. Whether it be religious or otherwise, I just like the idea behind it of how one person or 2 people or a small group of people can get so many other people to follow them. And always, whether it be, the bug one, which I read about last year, or this one, which is, about the Great Disappointment and whatnot. But anyway, Thomas travelled far and wide. He left the town and he went to try and find some other people in the church that would come back and say, you need to stop doing this and whatnot to William. But William managed to get into the psyche of everybody except for one family, and that was Henry. And Henry knew William when he was a boy, and he actually talks about, the rain is coming down now, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. And he actually talks about through the book how William was always that way. He was always able to get people to follow him and do stuff, and he's explaining this to Thomas. And Thomas ends up coming back, and the church doesn't back him on this. They see it as they're going back to their churches, and they're going to also talk about all the things and create even more hysteria and all that sort of stuff. And so I'm right where I'm at right now. I'm getting to the point where it's all starting to wrap up and everything like that. So we're getting close to the date and everything. And I'm just so intrigued. Like, there is a lot of preaching in this, because you've got the preacher preaching to his constituents and all that sort of stuff. So if you don't like that sort of stuff, it's probably not going to be the book for you. But just the way even the narrator, like, you can get this imagery of this man standing at his podium or whatever you call it, and preaching to his constituents above them, and creating that mass hysteria in them, and you can see it playing out. And this one family are refusing to do it, and then all the other families are now saying you can't play with the kids and all this sort of stuff. And there's been things that have happened, like the lightning strike and the locusts come, and you know, people are selling their properties and all that sort of stuff. And there's a whole heap of other stuff going on as well that I don't want to give away. Like, if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it, and I haven't even finished it yet. I feel like this is going to be a 4.5 star. It's marked down a little bit because, you know, like I feel like it's, for me, I don't think I could ever give, I don't think I could ever give a religious book 5 stars, but you never know. You just never know. This one, the narrator it's an audio book as well. Right now I'm sitting at a 4.5 stars. Depending how it wraps up and everything, it may end up being a 5-star read. But I just love it. Like how this little sleepy town had this priest come back, priest, pastor, whatever you want to call him, came back, and he started shouting from the rafters, and everybody was just following him blindly. Like, people that had farms for generations were selling their farms off and stuff. So I don't know yet how much of all that is true, but I mean, I could see that happening if the mass hysteria is correct and all that sort of stuff. So I am going to continue reading this. I will check in a moment once I've finished. I think I've got about an hour to go, and let you know what my final rating is. But that is like, it is such a good book. I'm so enjoying it. All right, so I'm going to head off and finish this book because I'm just thoroughly enjoying it. I haven't been able to put it down. Like, I was reluctant to go to sleep last night. I wanted to finish it, but I knew I had to get up super early to take me to school. But anyway, I'm going to go and finish it off, and I'll see you in the next clip. Hi everybody, and welcome back. Oof, it has been a pretty hectic couple of hours. I've had people coming and going because the fence is getting done. I've had phone calls. I've been trying to get stuff done. As you can hear, it's really noisy still, and all the things. Anyway, I finished the book, Clouds Without Water. Whew, this story is so impactful. Like, I cannot believe that I have waited this long to read this. I knew when I got it that I was going to be interested in it because it was based on facts. Like, this is a fictionalized story of that, the Great Disappointment, essentially. And as I said in previous clips, you know, we have Reverend William Miller was his name. And you can look this guy up, and yeah. So he believed that the world was coming to an end and there was the second coming of Christ, and he came to all this sort of conclusion. This is like the actual facts of it, right? So he believed in this and that. So this story has been built around this man. And so, yeah, I don't really know what else to say because I'm going to give it away. But if you have not read this, even if you are not a religious person, it is really good to read this book because it is thought-provoking, it is emotionally charged. Like, there were many times where I just had to stop and take a breath because, oh my goodness, the power that one person can have, just being that charismatic and being able to make these people believe in the second coming of Christ and these things that they had to do, the things they had to give up, all the things on that. And like, it was just like, oh my goodness, how much more are these people before they're going to stop? But there was one part in the book where Rosemary, one of the characters, she's a young girl that overheard at the beginning of the story the Reverend talking to Thomas, which was the other pastor in town. He wasn't, I don't think he was a Reverend, I think he was just a pastor. And she overheard them talking about the end of days. Anyway, she kept that to herself for a week, and then he did the sermon, and basically we learned that that's what was going on and all the rest of it. So Rosemary, sorry, I think her name was, yeah, Rosemary, yeah. Did I write that down? No, I didn't. So Rosemary, Abigail, and Benji are brothers and sisters, and they are the children of Henry, who is a widower that lost his wife, from what I can gather, to consumption. And so Reverend Miller has, you know, like, has stirred up the whole town and everything like that, and Henry is just keeping to himself. He doesn't want to have anything to do with it. Thomas was run out of town. I think he was run out of town. It was alluded to that he was run out of town, but I think something more sinister may have happened. I don't know. I'm only speculating there. I just feel like there was something more to it because there was something said later on in the book. Anyway, Thomas and Henry were talking, like saying that this was wrong, what was happening and all that sort of stuff. But what ended up playing out, and I don't want to give too much away, but what ended up playing out in the story was just like, oh my goodness. This story, if you haven't read it, you need to pick it up. Like, I've given it 4.5 stars, and that's only because there's a couple of little points that I'm being really picky on. That as far as the story goes and the intense feelings you get from this story, it's 5 star. That what happened to Thomas and around him, that's brought it down a little bit for me, and the fact that it was super preachy. But in saying that, I think it had to be super preachy to just get that, to drive that home about how one person who can be so charismatic and so able to just spread the word, whether it be gospel or whatever, that can make so many people blindly follow them. You know, we've seen this time and time again with different things that have happened around the world. And this book just drives it home. You know, like, you've got this doomsayer, okay, doomsday person, who is a reverend, who the community looks up to, and he's sprouting all this crap, for like a better word, and they are blindly following him. They are giving up. And then when something didn't happen, so when it was supposed to happen in October, it didn't happen. So then, you know, he disappeared for a while, but then he's come back and he's spun it on another story, and he's got the newspaper guy in on it to spit, and he just kept twisting it and basically saying that they had to give up this, and it was because of this. Every time that he said it was going to happen and then it didn't happen, it was because of someone else. Like, just kept passing the buck until eventually the story ended. And the reason I mentioned Rosemary is because she was devout. She was in her family, she was the devout one. She was the one that was blindly following. And the way it ended, I'm just like, oh my God, they did all that and it still didn't. Like, it's just like blindly following and not even questioning. Like, getting the, okay, so for one instance, this is a bit of a spoiler, okay. For one instance, to show you how far they were going, they had George is a townsman who called a meeting because he was concerned about people not having food, closing their shops to go and preach and all this sort of stuff, go and worship rather, and all this stuff. So he called a meeting, and Henry went to it, and he was in the background, and basically they were debating with each other and getting quite heated about it, about so-and-so has given up more because they sold their land and all this sort of stuff, and now they're destitute. So now it's the responsibility of the other people that haven't done that to now do that as well, to support them and all this sort of stuff. And then there was George. He was because it was on a river, so he used to bring supplies in through boats and stuff like that. So he was like the merchant seaman essentially, and basically he would bring supplies in, and the town was thriving and all that sort of stuff. They convinced him, because of fear on his part, convinced him that it was a good idea to shut down the ports, and all the money that he had earned and made over his lifetime was to be shared amongst the town, because that would give them salvation. And through fear, he went, okay, cool, because he had seen what they had done to Thomas, like moved him out of town and stuff like that. I still don't know whether he's moved out of town or not on that. I am so glad that I decided to listen to this book, because it is just a timely reminder of all the crap that's going on in the world, that sometimes that single voice that's yelling the loudest might not be the correct one. And it's just like, and when I read things like this, as most of you probably know, I am not religious at all, but I am more than happy to read about different religions and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't mean that I am, whatever you want to label me at. It's just that I believe in what I believe in, and I can honestly, look at different faiths and all that sort of stuff. And that's why I like reading stuff like this, because it just reminds me that you don't necessarily you can be a believer or whatever, but you don't have to do it blindly. You don't have to listen to this person over here screaming the loudest, because that person could be just wrong. That you need to think, you need to make up your own mind and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, this is going to turn into a rant otherwise. But yeah, 4.5 stars from me. This is a really good book. If you don't like religious stuff, go into it how I went into it. Thinking about the hysteria of it all and how easily people are whipped up into hysteria, because it didn't just happen in this town. This guy managed to spread it across before the first one, which was considered the great disappointment. He managed to spread this across a lot of the United States, and he managed to convince that other preachers should be preaching this stuff as well. So it's a very interesting read on how the psychology, I guess, behind it of hysteria comes about. And it is just a great book. I really think you should give it a go if you haven't picked it up. It is called Clouds Without Water, and it's by Gary Harper. And apparently he has a couple other books. The other book that he has is St. Anthony's Fire, which, considering how compelling this book was and how interesting this book is, I am probably going to be picking that up and check it, see if it's on Kindle or whatever. Thoroughly enjoyed this book. Highly recommend. Pick it up. This was published in 2022, so this has been on my I must have got it from the Read It Now shelf, and it's been on my shelf for quite some time. So I have now listened to it. It is now off my books, and I'm so glad I did. All right, I'm going to head off. I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining me. Sorry about not being in my colourful background and all the rest of it. As I said, I'm on location. And all that sort of stuff. But I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that you like this NetGalley vlog. It's episode 1. Do give me a thumbs up on the video. Leave me a comment down below. Have you read this before? And let's discuss, because there's a lot to discuss and a lot to unpack in this book. Or any of the books that you've read from this list, and that let me know in the comments down below. But as I said, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and click all notifications so you don't miss out on anything that I upload. And as always, keep turning those pages, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.